Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? I hope everyone can hear me. You're all welcome to today's session. I am sure we had a great time yesterday, but we'll be starting the class now because it's 12, and one of our brand equity is to be on time. You're welcome to the free cybersecurity training in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Youth, Sports and Development. My name is Olubumi, and with Academy Halogen, the subsidiary of the Halogen Group. Before we dig into today's session, where of course my colleague will be taking us on the session that we all enjoyed yesterday, I quickly want to just say this, that please subscribe to the channel that you're currently watching, and you can, by extension, also subscribe to Halogen's Group's channel on YouTube as well, so they can get frequent updates on many other programs that we'll be offering as we proceed. I'm sure, as you all know, the training started yesterday. It's going to run again through today and, of course, into tomorrow, Friday. And on Saturday will be our tutorial session where you can ask all the questions you want to ask, and as well as the assessments that will qualify you for the scholarship program. Of course, it will be only those who pass the assessments that would have the opportunity to be qualified for the scholarship program. Just a quick one, I would like to take us through some of the things that we did yesterday, a quick review or summary of what happened in day one. We discussed a bit on the history of the internet. We also looked at what is security, why you need security, what is cybersecurity. We looked at cybersecurity management. We looked at incident response to cyber attacks, features and components of cybersecurity. I'm sure a lot of you remember the CIA triad. That was quite interesting to us as well. We looked at introduction to hackers and types of hackers. We noticed a lot of comments around this area, consequences of hacking, terminologies and common attacks in cybersecurity, top things you need to stay safe online, fundamentals and building blocks of security and privacy. I am very hopeful and that we gleaned all of the details that was required for this. One of the advice I would give to every one of us here today is please get a quiet place and get the writing materials and take notes. It will be very helpful. What we did was to allow the content of yesterday stay online up to this very morning so that you could, refresh yourself. And we will give that same privilege again today, but it will be very helpful you take as much notes as you want to take. If you have any questions, there's a link that will be shared by my colleague, Bankole, when it comes up. But you can also make use of the chat box where you can just type your questions. We have our colleagues who are picking up these questions, and they'll be attended to on Saturday. For today, that is Thursday, the 1st of September, I should quickly say a big happy new month to every one of you. We're going to be looking at understanding cyber attacks. We'll be looking at familiarizing with networking, familiarizing with applications, hacker toolkits, social engineering attacks and mitigation strategies. We would also look at password cracking and mitigation. I'm sure a lot of us are excited about that possibility. We'll look at web exploits. We'll look at threat tactics, malware, which is a very common attack feature on most systems. We'll look at attack kill chain and attack vectors. All of these terminologies will be explained in the course of the session. We'll look at we'll have a deep dive into the dark web. A lot of us will probably watch CIA movies and we hear of the dark web and what does it really mean? What does it entail? You would get to understand all of that today. We'll also look at physical attacks, indicators of compromise, tactics, techniques, and procedures. We'll look at the man in the middle of the attacks. Who is he? What is his identity? Then we'll look at finally Windows hacking tricks. Now, unlike yesterday, what we will do today is that we're going to break the sessions into two parts. This is for two reasons. Number one is to give our Muslim brothers the opportunity to pray. And the second reason is to give us the time to digest what we have learned. So, of course, the session will run between 12 and 1 p.m. From 1 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. will be a break so that our Muslim brothers can pray. And you can use that opportunity to digest what you would have learned. And then by 1:30 p.m., we will come back again on the same link. The link will not be changing, the link that has day 2, and then continue from 1:30 all the way to 2:30. For tomorrow, it's going to be a different format, noting that we'll be having Jumat. So the class will run from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. And then from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., we'll be on break, and then from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. But of course, at the end of today's session, I'll be back to reiterate some of the things I have said. Remember what I've said, two very key things. Please get a pen, get a paper, get a quiet place where you can maximize the learning for today. And also, please remember to subscribe to the channel. And by extension, please subscribe to the Halogen Group channel as well. At this point, I would, of course, be handing over to my colleague who will be taking us into the main session in itself. Welcome once again, everyone. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. So, I'm Bankole Adekola. Hope you guys enjoyed your class yesterday. Hope it was insightful, and hope you've practiced or tried to look up on some of the things that we discussed yesterday. So today I'll just do another. My colleague has done a recap, but okay. So I don't think there's really need for us to go over all that. To go over what we did yesterday again, but maybe for the benefit of those that were not around, I might just do a very brief one. What is security? We explained what security is. I told you there's no specific definition, so that's fine. And then cybersecurity is the process of protecting our assets and also, from attackers, and also making it secure. And then features of cybersecurity, where we discussed confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And we also gave examples of the CIA triad, where I explained to you how the banks have implemented the CIA triad in almost all their operations, the ATM and all that, and even the banking operations, our banking apps, how they've implemented CIA triad and all those things. Also give you an example of who hackers are and the motivation, or what motivates the hackers to do what they do. We explained about 6 types of hackers, but I told you that there are 4 specific types, which is the black hat, the white hat, the gray hat, and the script kiddies. But I still further explain who hacktivists are, and who also the activists are, the blue hat and the red hat. The motives also, we talked about it, financial gain, sometimes they just want to be vengeful, and different motives. Some is to make money, some is to steal money, some is to direct traffic to their websites, and a whole lot of, some is also as an activist kind of movement. The consequences of hacking, we talked about how, if you hack wrongly, you could be arrested depending on the laws of the land or the area where you are. So we also gave that the breakdown of that, the consequences of the hacking, and then we broke down a whole lot of terminologies in the cybersecurity sector that we'll be using. We talked about malwares, botnets, talked about denial of service attack, backdoors, viruses, worms, and a whole lot of terminologies that we'll still be using along the line in this course. And then I also explained to you things you need to do to stay safe online. I told you, please always update your softwares, always update your operating systems of your phones, of your applications, of your laptop, Windows operating system, Mac operating system. Once there's an update available, update it, especially security related updates. Always update that to keep yourself safe online. Also do your two-factor authentication on all your accounts. Wherever there's the possibility of having more than one form of authentication, please implement it so that at least if one breaks, the other one could be able to, support. Touched on several things, always use strong passwords, make your passwords not guessable, a lot. So today, we'll be going into, today might be a little bit, we promised you that we'll make it too technical for those that are not really deep into computer. So we promised you that we'll make it too technical, but we'll try our best to make sure you understand what we are trying to communicate. So without further ado, I'll go into today's classes. And today we'll be we'll be familiarizing you with networks. So it's more like an overview of, first, an overview of networks, different types of networks, how your messages we actually call anything passing through networks, to call them packets. So how your packets flow through the network, the protocols that it implies. We talk about the OSI model. We talk about the TCP/IP model. We mentioned something about that yesterday, actually, that, that was the real birth of the internet when the TCP model came into play. That was actually when the internet actually started. So we'll talk about that TCP/IP model, what made it become the standard or framework for communicating online. We'll talk about toolkits, several toolkits in the hackers, just a few actually, because there are many, but I'll just try to break down a few for you, and then probably maybe later today or tomorrow, we'll do a little bit of practicals on those toolkits that the hackers use, that we use in the real world. And I also explained to you, so yeah, I'll still get there. We'll still talk about the social engineering attacks today. We'll talk about password cracking. We'll talk about web exploits. We'll also talk about the malwares. We'll talk about the attack kill chain. We'll introduce you to the dark web. So we'll do a brief introduction today into the dark web, and I might also tell you some applications you need to install so that you can access the dark web safely, because of course it's the dark web, and your safety on the dark web is also paramount. You have to be very, very safe. You have to be very, very conscious of what you do when you're on the dark web. So we'll also give you an intro to that today. And then we'll also give you talk about the indicators of compromise. How do you know that your machine or your organization has been compromised? Like, what are the indicators? What indicates that you've been hacked? Because sometimes a lot of people are hacked and they don't even know. So we'll be explaining to you what are the indicators of compromise, and also talk about some tactics by attackers. And then we'll give you some Windows tricks on some things to tweak or tweak your Windows operating systems to. And then you might be able to touch a few on Mac operating systems, but we know that most users are on Windows, so we might focus more on Windows and then a little bit of Mac. And I'm not too sure of the users that are on Linux operating systems. We'll also so when we are installing Linux, actually, I'll give you some tricks on the Linux part of it. So Linux is usually the go-to operating systems for hackers. So I'll also give you a breakdown of how to also do some tricks on that machine also. So today, let's start with familiarizing ourselves with computers. To familiarize ourselves with computers today. So to be an effective hacker, you should know the different types of processors that exist in the modern computer world. So for instance, the three largest microprocessors, or the three largest microprocessor manufacturers, the three guys that manufacture microprocessors have Intel. I'm sure you guys might have heard of Intel before. If you check on your system, you will see in those days there used to be one kind of holding this laptop, you see Intel inside. So Intel is actually the name of the manufacturer of that chip that is running on that machine. And so you see a lot of machines. Most laptops in Nigeria are actually Intel. Um, I think that's like the major one, that like the number one. They also have one other one called AMD. AMD stands for American Micro Devices. So I think one of the major fallbacks of AMD in Nigeria is the temperature. It's actually a processor that actually overheats sometimes if the temperature is not conducive for it. And so that's why you might not really tend to see a lot of them here in Nigeria. But it's also a very, very good processor, equally as fast as the Intel processor. We have one last among the top three. We have Motorola. That's very, very uncommon. In Nigeria here, we hardly use the Motorola um, processor, but well, it's one of them, and it's good for you to know it just in case you have to do hacking on processors. So it's good to know all the processors and also know their capabilities. Even it also helps you when you're trying to buy a laptop for your own personal use, or you're trying to recommend laptops for people. I get a lot of calls sometimes. What kind of laptops can I buy? To be able to hack or to use for this hacking, or even some people just call randomly that this is what I do. I need this type of what kind of laptop will be good for it? So it's also good if you have the knowledge of all these processors, what they do, the RAMs, RAM size, we talk about the RAM size also. And the processor will have the Core i5. Of course, the higher the core, the faster. That's what we always think, but that is not always the case. We have the Core i3, Core i5, Core i7, and there's even the Core i9. But there are some things you need to look at when you're buying. You don't just look at the core. We have the generation of the laptops. We have the generation of that processor. We have the generation, which is what you see immediately after you see. If you go to the system settings and you go, okay, you can just go to the bottom left corner of your system, the Windows button, and then you right click on the start, and then you go to system, get the system information. Also, that's one of the shorter ways. There's also a code. There's also you can also type and get there to system information. Once you click on your start button, just type system information. When you see it, you see Core i5 or maybe Core i3, and then you see a number in front. So the first digit, the first letter of that number is the generation of your processor. So for instance, you see a Core i7, and then they will put something like 7,910. So that's a seventh gen. You see something like Core i7 9,720 something. So that means that's a ninth generation. But when you now see something like 7,000, 10,000, that's a 10th gen. And so the higher the gen, also the faster. But one other thing you need to consider for computers also is the clock speed. That's the next thing in front of the processor, is the clock speed. That's another thing you need to consider when you are purchasing a laptop for hacking. You see something like 2 points. So you see some laptops come with, like, you see it has GHz, that's gigahertz per second. So that's the speed, that's the clock speed. We actually call it clock speed. So if you have that, it's about you can see some of 1 point something. The higher the clock speed, the faster your processor will be. So that is how it plays also. So you have things to consider: the processor speed. Intel, you check, you see it Core i5, Core i7. Next thing to check is the generation of the laptop, 7th gen. So you can even see sometimes a Core i5 will actually be faster than a Core i7, or even a Core i3 will be faster than a Core i7. So because you can get a Core i7 or maybe 3rd generation, and then a Core i5 of 10th generation. Obviously, it may be a clock speed of 2.8, 2.9. Obviously, it will be faster than a Core i7 that is a 4th generation with a clock speed of maybe 1.9. So you see, sometimes it's not really about the core of the laptop, or so the clock speed plays an accounts of clock speed, the generation of the processor, and then one last thing also is the RAM. The RAM of the system also plays a very good role in selecting a laptop, and also the kind of, when you're also attacking a laptop, this kind of, what that laptop can actually process. So you don't go and make a payload. When I say payload here, I'm talking of a virus. You don't go and make a virus that was made to run on a very fast processor and expect it to run properly on a Core i3. So that's also one thing you check when you're trying to hack into when you're trying to hack into somebody's system. So as attackers, what we do is we're always trying to make sure the codes we are creating or we're generating or the exploits or payloads we are generating has the capability to run on the most minimal system. Because one other reason how people know that their system has been attacked is when the system gets slow. So if your payload slows down a system, then you know that there's a possibility that it will not write properly because the person will know. And that's why sometimes the virus will be on your system for years or on your server and you won't even know because it has been crafted to suit the architecture that you're running. So I will show you a whole lot of ways you can actually know what kind of processor or the capability or the how you can know the system spec just by sending a simple command to somebody. I think we'll talk about it today, but we'll practicalize it tomorrow. So you just get the person's IP address, push some commands. The other one is ethical, so don't you can just push some commands, and you get the system information remotely of that system, and so you can know what to do, how to, So yeah, one good system to buy is something from, I always advise 16 gig and above, but if you can't work with 16 gig, probably because of financial limitations, then just go with your 8 gig or yeah, 8 gig too we do, but the higher the RAM, the faster your system will run. Even some people go as high as buying 32 gig, but sometimes any RAM higher than, I think for laptop higher than 32 gig, the rest is just a waste, except if you're really going to use it for maybe graphic processing or some video editing. Yeah, that's where that's. So, but for hacking, 16 gig is good enough, even 8 gig, depending on the speed. 8 gig, 16 gig, and if you have the money, 32 gig will be best fine for you. So yeah, these processors are among most of the personal computers that a hacker will actually encounter, but each has its own unique set of instructions. So that's why I say you always have to know what it is. Although most hackers really have to deal with programming language on the machine level, but a very sophisticated hacking will actually require an understanding of the different kind of processors and the kind of instruction sets that each of them run on. So some processors are programmable, by the end user, that's by you yourself. You can actually program your processor. It's not like Intel and AMD that comes pre-programmed. You can program your processor, and that kind of programmable processor is called. It's not actually so common in Nigeria. You actually have to do maybe a special order, or you find it really. It's called the FPGA. It's called the FPGA, and that means Field Programmable Gate Array. So you yourself, you can trick most of those billboards you see, or some of those, they're actually running on Field Programmable Gateway Array. So because they're actually more used for the FPGA is mostly used for embedded systems. So particularly for things like industrial controls, and so you can always switch how you want your industrial controls to act. But hackers have been known to gain access to these chips while they're even in production, so that you can even deploy. They can just deploy it right on final. The malware or the stuff we just deploy right on arrival at its final destination. So an attacker can actually hack into a chip manufacturing company, install whatever malicious software he wants to install, and when he gets to his final destination, you know, it begins to do what he wants to do. I explained yesterday. I talked about how a company, a country actually embedded a chip, a malicious script into one of their printers and scanners. So whenever you print any document, it sends them copy of it. Also, whenever you scan anything, it sends them a copy. So imagine somewhere like a secret agency where they scan a lot of confidential data, or even financial records or banks or something, and everything they scan gets transferred to that country. And so that's an example of how you can that's an example of knowing how to even hack embedded chips. You can actually, so the person, no matter which antivirus you put on that system, it will never, because it's on the embedded chip, it will be difficult for an antivirus to pick out on the kind of script actually. So most of the time, these embedded attacks are actually particularly concerning the military or industrial customers, that purchase skills large scales and critical systems. So if you want to go into that kind of hacking, it's good you have a very good working knowledge of these embedded chips and how to hack into them. So there are articles online about hacking embedded chips. If you go online now, you can just check hacking embedded chips, hacking SCADA systems, that's or how to, malicious. You can just do a scan or a search for malicious scripts for SCADA system. SCADA is SCADA. So you can just do a search for that because that's one of the popular embedded industrial control systems that we have running over the world. So if you want to hack, if you want your hacking level to be at that stage, those are the kind of things you need to look into. Yep. So now we're familiarizing ourselves with network. We're familiarizing ourselves with network. So one of the most important subjects for aspiring hackers is to study network architecture and the protocols that run on the network. Yeah, so computers can be networked in many different ways. Computers can be networked in many different ways, in terms of configuration, depending on the size, the configuration, with different technologies that govern their interconnection, from copper wire to fiber optics to wireless to satellite connections, as well as combination of all these medias. So we have built a vast network of computers across the globe, and these networks can be understood in its entirety on a large scale, as well as viewed as a connection of smaller self-contained networks. So depending on the kind of network that you have, that will determine where you should focus your knowledge on most times. So, but it's good to have an idea. So, what's a copper wire? I will still break down copper wires and fiber optics later, and even wireless later on in this course. So, you have the copper wire kind of connection. We have the fiber optics, which is mostly used for faster networks, and we have the wireless connections. We have the satellite connections also. And so, yeah, that is it. So, in terms of size, computer networks have been traditionally categorized as the local area network. I'm sure you've heard of, maybe for those of you that work in some, you hear the LAN cable is not working, something like that. Or you hear something like, the LAN network, maybe you hear IT guys speaking, and then, so what they mean actually is local area network. And then we also have another one, which is called wide area network. I'm sure from the names you might be able to decode what it means. So local area, that's local, doesn't mean it's a local place, like the way we always mention local in Nigeria. I won't say local, but local actually means like in an office or in that environment, in a limited space. That's a local area network. So an office mostly runs, your office or hotels or cafes, they all run on what we call local area network. Then the wide area network is what companies like MTN use to broadcast to the local area networks. So it comes from the wide area network to the local area network. And so that is how the technology works. So yeah, that's how the technology works. So there are multiple other designations for different sizes of network, and the terminology is always changing as there are new technologies and conductivities develop also. There are new. So keeping up with these changes is one of the ongoing tasks that you will have to do as an ethical hacker or as a hacker. You have to keep going on with those technologies so that it comes, you know what it is. I'm sure if I mention something like Raspberry Pi, a lot of people will be like, is that a strawberry? Is that a type of fruit? But if you just do a Google search on what Raspberry Pi is, in fact, even me, I had to, when I was learning hacking back then in India, I had to go and look for Raspberry Pi to buy because it was one of the cheapest. It's actually one of the cheapest. It's just the size of of an ATM card. And so imagine the size of an ATM card carrying almost, if I everything that your laptop has. If I knew I would have if I knew I would refer to this, I would have probably had it nearby. So it's just the size, maybe tomorrow actually I'll bring it along. So it's just a very little chip, and it has in fact the one I have, the Raspberry Pi 2, which has almost 4 USB ports, it has a Bluetooth, it has wireless, and it's just the size of an ATM card. So it's good when you're trying to learn embedded systems, you can get that because it's easy for you to format it at any time learn. In fact, back then I used to host some malicious servers on it. When I'm done, I totally destroy it, or format it, change the MAC address, and get fresh. So you can play around stuff like that. So as an ethical hacker, one of the ongoing tasks is always to go with the changes of things that are happening. There's Raspberry Pi, there's Arduino. So Arduino and Raspberry Pi mostly are what we use for IoTs. So if you're trying to learn IoT of hacking, that's those are one of the things to start with. Actually, those are one of the things. That machine can actually run on the power bank. Those machines you can just plug it to a power bank, and you have a computer running. You do your SSH into it, and impute commands. If it has a port for HDMI, that's for the Raspberry Pi. So that's one of the things you can just go to Google search Raspberry Pi. You can maybe, if your search might not be, so you can just do Raspberry Pi 2, Raspberry Pi 3, or maybe a Raspberry Pi computer, and then you can read up on it and gain more knowledge about it. So it can help you a lot. You can set up your server in-house, try to hack into it, see what works, format it again, try. So it's a very small device, so you can do a whole lot of it. You can even use it to set up a multimedia system in your house. So back to our track now. Networks also have different architectures, and this architecture is determined not only by the configuration of the different nodes, but also on the medium that connects them. Originally, network computers were also connected by copper wires, commonly used copper wire cables, often known as Ethernet cable. That's what we call LAN cable, in our offices. It's an Ethernet cable, actually. So it consists of what we call twisted pairs of copper wire. I'll show you a picture in the next slide. So what we call it twisted pairs, that's the name. Twisted pairs of copper wire, because the wire is twisted around it, and so it's called twisted pairs of copper wire. Although the most common of this cable is category 5. I'm sure you've heard of Cat 5 cable, Cat 6 cable. The meaning of that cat is not cat of dog and cat, it's actually category. So because as the technology was developing, the category was also developing. So we are currently on Cat 6 actually, but most organizations use the Cat 5 with a small letter E. That's category 5E. And it's some fast-moving companies that are ready to adapt technology are already on the Cat 6, which has the greater capacity of transmitting signals. So for very high-speed applications and longer distance, you go for fiber optics, and fiber optics serve as the backbone for the internet with smaller wireless connections. So let me just quickly so regardless of the architecture or medium of transmission, when two terminals are communicating across networks, they must do so using a common set of rules. You must do so using it, or you might have to put a converter in between or something. But the easiest way is for them to do so having a common set of rules known as protocols. So networking protocols have evolved from the first time network were created. We talked about that yesterday, TCP/IP, transmission control protocol. So they've evolved since the first networks were created. So in general, a network is conceptualized in terms of different layers that perform different functions. This is known as a stack. So the most common communication protocol used today are the internet protocol, that's IP. So when you hear someone say, what's your IP address? It means, what's your internet protocol address? So IP address. So what's your IP address? And then we have the TCP, that's Transfer Control Protocol. Taken together, we call them the TCP/IP. And we'll still talk about this later too also. So these protocols change and standardize. These protocols change and are standardized on occasion. So depending on what it is. So it is very critical for hackers to learn these protocols and how they relate to communication between different layers of the stack. I'll explain these different layers of the stack later also. So that's how hackers actually gain higher knowledge and higher access into a system. The higher knowledge you have, the higher kind of systems you can access. You get. So that is it. So still familiarizing ourselves with those cables I talked about. I explained also. So this is the Cat6 cable. Let me turn on my laser pen so that you can see what I'm saying. So this is the Cat6 cable, actually known as the category 6 cable, and this is the Cat5e cable. You can see why they are called twisted pairs. So they are twisted in pairs. You see, this is twisted black, brown and white. This is twisted with green and green stripes. So that's what they're called, twisted pairs. So they are twisted in pairs, twisted in twos. So that consists of twisted pairs. So that's it. That's how it looks actually. Category E and category 6 and category 5E. Category 6 and category 5E. The next one is the fiber optics cables. Have the fiber optic cables, and these ones are for very high speed applications and for longer distance. So fiber optics cables are usually chosen when you want to do something like we also have what we call the sea cable, undersea cables. So actually the whole world is actually connected by cables. There's a cable that runs from Nigeria to the United Kingdom. I think that was done by Glow some years back. There are cables that run from the United Kingdom to Germany. There's a cable under the sea that runs from in United States to Singapore, to from the European countries to the Asian countries. All these things have, there are undersea cables that actually transmit this information, but it's very, very fast. You don't even notice. But actually, they all run on cables. It's called undersea cables. Those cables are just one cable is as big as maybe a truck, just a cable. It takes years or months to actually lay those cables under the sea in a secure manner. So, yep, back to what we're talking about. So we have the fiber optics, which serves as actually the backbone of the internet. Serves as the backbone for the internet because that's what most of these are fast networks are running. You see, there was also a time when networks started digging some trenches around our area. They would dig. You see them put some colored cables, just looking like what we have on this picture. So those cables are actually fiber optics cables. It's a faster means of communication. And so that is why you see that they use those kind of cables these days. It's very fast and it's also for high capacity, for carrying high capacity of information. The other one on the side, let me get my laser pen again. This one on the side is the one that we now run into our environment. And then this one is the one that will mostly run outdoor, but they are both classified as fiber cables, fiber optic cables. So when you hear someone talk about fiber cables, I'm sure you have an idea now. So so these fiber cables actually have protection layer, which is this, just in case the rubber part of it gets damaged. At least this part should still be able to secure what we have inside. And then there's still another one. Actually, it works with transmitting of, it works like, let me not go into the details of how it works actually. It works with lightning speed. That's why it's called optics. So it works with light actually, instead of transferring through copper cables like the previous two-step pairs that I just talked about. This works with light, and so it's very fast. Of course, you know the speed of light. Light is one of the fastest. Light is one of the fastest. So that's why when there's a thunder strike, you see the strike of thunder first before you now hear the sound. So that means light is faster. So that's also the same technology that we have employed also to create these fiber cables. So it's very fast. So the next is Wi-Fi. I'm sure we all know what Wi-Fi, we've used Wi-Fi. Some of us are even using Wi-Fi at the moment. What Wi-Fi means is wireless fidelity protocol. Wireless fidelity protocol. Oh, wow. It's wireless fidelity protocol. And so we all know Wi-Fi. Should I explain Wi-Fi? But actually, Wi-Fi is one of the most unsecure. So let me actually explain. And that's why it's very easy for people to attack Wi-Fi. Um, you know, considering the fact that it's open air, considering the fact that Wi-Fi is open air, anybody can actually hack into it because it's transmitting. So one of the major things, if you have the opportunity of configuring your Wi-Fi, like if I'm configuring a Wi-Fi for my personal use, one Simple security feature that I use is I don't broadcast the SSID. So the SSID is actually the name, is the name of the Wi-Fi. So if, for instance, you are connected to a Wi-Fi called free internet, something, something, free internet academy Halogen or something. That name is called an SSID. We'll talk about this tomorrow, maybe when we're doing the practical, because I'll show you how to hack into some wireless networks also. So we have, yeah, so one of the simplest ways to do it is not to broadcast your SSID at all, but there's also a way from our hacking tools that even someone that is not broadcasting his SSID will be able to see. But at least for the general public or for the layman, the easiest way is for you not to broadcast your SSID. So that's one of the safest ways. But we have three major password protocols that we use when we are configuring our Wi-Fi. We use WPA. Let me start from the smallest. We use WEP, or we use free first, open. Then there's WEP, then there's WPA, then there's WPA2, and then currently there's a new one called WPA3. I actually use it sometimes when I'm consulting for people, setting up their configurations. I always advise that they go with the WPA3 because the newer it is, the more secure. I told you about updating, why you need to always update. So imagine someone that was on WEP and he feels like, oh, he's okay, and he leaves it like that. But now we even have WPA3. So once you have that, just upgrade to the newer one. It's always more secure. So yes, that is Wi-Fi. That's Wi-Fi. It's difficult to hack into people that are using cables because you have to now get there physically. Maybe unplug that cable, plug it into your system, or plug it into whatever device you want to use to hack, and then for it now, maybe. So it's a long process. So that's why Wi-Fi is usually, and then fiber optics is even the hardest for it to hack because having the tools alone for them, having the whatever we have to convert it, it's mostly on enterprise level. It's not for individuals. It's not for individuals at all. It's usually for on enterprise level. So it's usually difficult to hack into fiber optics. So it also makes it very secure, except if it's an organization trying to hack. So now let's get a little bit technical, small with our networking. That was just the introduction so that you build up to what we are getting into. It's a little bit technical, but not still because we have said it. We make sure it's understandable to the majority. So we've talked about how networking protocols have evolved. So let me get my light again. So on the OSI, we have I told you that we have two protocols that the network internet normally runs on generally. So we have the OSI reference model. It's a reference model actually. And then we'll have the TCP/IP layers. So the OSI model actually has 7 layers: application layer, presentation layer, session layer, transport layer, network layer, data link layer, and the physical layer. So it's 7 layers actually, but we always count from the bottom. Physical layer first, and that's because it's the physical one where you can see. That's where you have all the cables, you have all the other things that is on the physical level. Then we have the data link, which is what links up all the data. And then we have the network layer. I'm just going to explain this on a very, very, layman level so that everybody can grasp. Let's not go too technical right now. Yeah, let's not go too technical so everybody can grab it properly. So yeah, we have the network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and application layer. So the presentation layer is what we normally see. Presentation and application layer is what we see as users. All these other ones happen mostly at the back end. Same thing, you have the TCP/IP model. It only consists of 4 major layers. I'm just trying to be a little bit faster so it has 4 major layers, and application, transport, and network. So it's an easy protocol for people to usually understand easily. But the truth is that it's good you understand everything so that when you're trying to hack, because you hack on different levels. Of course, the kind of hacking you do on a physical level is different from the kind of hacking you do maybe transport level or network level or application level. So it's very, very important. When people ask me sometimes, this is what I always tell them: just go and learn your OSI model very well. Once you know your OSI model, hacking protocols and what you need to do when you're hacking will be a walkover for you, because almost everything we hack these days works on the network. So of course you have the of course what you do on the network layer what you hack on the network layer is different from what you hack on an application layer. And so that's also why even when you're troubleshooting too, as a security expert, if you're in an environment where there's an issue and you're trying to troubleshoot, it's good you understand when you hear the kind of issue it is, this is an issue that has to do with layer 7 of the OSI model. You know what to tackle accordingly. So yeah, that is that for this. Um let's just quickly okay, or should I just let me just explain. I will explain only the TCP/IP model for you, and I'll leave the OSI model for you to go and read up on your own. Yep. Leave that for us to go and read up on our own. So for the network interface, so for the OSI model, or let me just do that in the next slide. So this is the this so this is how it works actually. We have the source and we have the destination. Let's assume we are the source since we are the one sending out the packet. So on the source level, the link layer, on the source level, application layer is what we are seeing. And so you send your message, it goes into the transport layer. That's where it moves all through the cables and everything. Then it goes into the network layer when it moves through all those networking devices and follows all those protocols and how to get to you. And then it gets to the link layer, which links that message you have sent now to the internet. And then the internet now links it back towards where, so for the receiver part now, it starts from the link layer on the receiver's end, moves from the link layer to the network layer. From the network layer, it moves to the transport layer, then the application layer, where you have sent that packet to now receives that information across the network. So that is how it works actually. From the source, it starts from the application layer, and at the destination, it ends at the application layer. I hope you get that. So from the source, it starts from the application layer, and at the destination side, it ends at the application layer. It starts at the link layer, ends at the application layer. Here, it starts at the application layer and ends at the link layer. So there is that's how it works. So I guess that is cool enough. Next is familiarizing ourselves with programming. Of course, most people, that's why a lot of people get scared of coming into cybersecurity. They're like, how do I want to start? Even me, I had that fear, let me not lie. How do I want to start cramming code? How do I want to start thinking about what to type and what not to type in this code? So it's very, 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 it may be very daunting, a very stressful learning programming language from scratch. Having never done it before, for many people, find it difficult to become proficient in one programming language. So, but the best thing for you to actually do is get proficient in one programming language, and from there, it will be easier for you and easier and faster actually to learn others. It will be easier for you to learn others. So hackers not only have to understand programming language to be able to exploit software vulnerabilities, but many hackers need to write their own code to be able to execute a particular attack. Reading, understanding, and writing a code is very, very fundamental to hacking. I talked about script kiddies yesterday, and I mentioned that most hackers actually start from script kiddies. So your intention now makes you either a black hat or a white hat, but most times black hat is what most people always like going to. So I don't know why. So it's very good for you, even if you're not going to be writing the code. I know I told you one of the downsides of being a script kid is not knowing how your script will respond. And then even when you have pushed out your script, you don't know, some things that might go wrong. But if you are proficient enough with networking, if you're proficient enough with networking, with programming, you will know what the code says. Wow, you know what the code says, and you know what the code says, and you know how it will respond when you have sent it out. And so that's why it's very, very good for us to understand. Even if it's just one programming language you're able to pick up on and know what, if it's only one programming language you're able to pick up on and know what it does, it's good. Learn it very well. I recommend you learning Python. Even me, I started from Python. Actually, it's very easy. I did a little bit of C, but Python. So programming language range for different machine learning. But on the binary level, you use C++ and Java. So sometimes you can just learn it if you want to be hacking, uh, you know, operating systems from the scratch or all that. Yeah, but Python also helps. Well, I recommend, and Python is one of the easiest programming languages for people to learn. Um, I don't know, maybe that's my own opinion. That actually, I think that's not my opinion. That's like general opinion. But even for me, Python was one of the easiest to learn. Maybe because I knew some other languages, but actually it's very easy. What you do 5 lines of code on some other programming language, you do it on 1 line of code in Python. So yeah, I would advise you guys, if you want to dig into programming languages, you can just go through the route of learning Python. So computers are actually servants of mankind. They don't know what to do. That's the truth. Without a clear instruction, computers don't know what to do. Even now, if you turn on your computer and you don't open Microsoft Word, it will be there looking at you. So what you program it to do is what you should now do. So if you have programmed it that once I press power button, immediately pop up. There's a way you can do that actually immediately pop up Microsoft Word for me. When immediately I turn on this computer, immediately pop up one app. It's what you tell your computer to do that it will do. And so since binary languages are difficult, learning of binary machine, learning of binary language is very difficult for programmers, but it's also very good for us. It's also what brings us, as humans closer to that machine. So what brings us closer to that machine? So one thing about programming is that it's created by humans. It's written by people, and of course, definitely, it's subject to error. There might be 1 or 2 things that they're actually not intended, but there might be 1 or 2 things that the programmer might have, oversight. And he might have done it out of oversight, just type or even maybe a copy and paste code, and he didn't scrutinize the code properly. So you see, those errors are what we as hackers look out for when we're attempting to gain unauthorized entry into systems. Those are what we look out for. I'm sure you've heard of some cars that actually can be hacked. There's one Honda car that you can actually start using a software. So the hacker actually just went through the code and he saw that was a vulnerability and he was able to exploit it. And yeah, that's how you're able to get access into the car and even start the car from his phone. So that's actually the job of hackers. We look for where somebody will forget something, and okay, I'll still explain that one later. That's how somebody will forget something, and that's what you just use as the leverage to jump onto that system. So it's therefore fundamental for hackers to, obtain the compilers, interpreters necessary to become fluent in very important programming languages, and at least minimally fair with several others. So it's good for you to be able to understand what you're typing. It's good for you to be able to understand what you're typing so that you can always know what to adjust on. So most of these programming languaging tools are open source and freely available in one form or the other. Yeah, so you can also go around, maybe online, download one programming software. Most of the softwares are open source, like what we use for programming Python. Okay, so I'll be rounding up in the next 5 minutes so that we can go on break, and then when we come back, we'll continue in hacking toolset. But let me just round up quickly with what we have learned today, so that we don't jump into what we won't finish up. So it has become very, very important for hackers to learn to learn a whole lot of programming languages. I've advised you to do that. For it, an easier part is Python, and the Python development environment is free. It's open source, so you can always get it for free. There's no payment at all. So get videos, get articles around, and try to learn Python. One thing about Python is that it's very good for automation, and it saves you a lot of time also. So you can just automate that. Okay, when user clicks Z, kindly send, you know. So that is one good thing about Python. You can even create a Python code that says automatic shut down my computer whenever somebody opens a, a VLC player, or whenever somebody clicks on one app or something. Very easy, and all those things will not take you up to even 3 or 4 lines of code. So it's very, very, Python is one of the best tools even for people that are into system administration. They use Python a lot also. So it's one of the tools that is very useful for us to use. I mean, very useful for us as hackers. So I'm coming. So yeah, I think it's almost time for the break. So let me not jump into the new topic. I won't be able to round up. Let's respect timing. And so the next things we'll be talking about today will be hacker tool sets, the tool sets for hackers. So we're breaking down a lot of tool sets for you when you're back from the break. We'll talk about several tool sets. Let me not break the shell yet. So yeah, when you're back, we talk about backward cracking tools, we talk about social engineering tools, we talk about vulnerability scanners. I'll give you some real life scenarios of how we've used all those things and how it has worked for us on the field. And yes, so yeah, let's go on break. It's a 30 minutes break. Bumi already explained why we're doing that today, so that at least people can have time to, relax, and those that need to pray can pray. And yes, so we're going to break now. And when we come back, we'll talk about hacker tool sets, talk about vulnerability scanners, port scanners, packet sniffers, password crackers, and some other tools also. So just sit back, relax, and yes, please come back in 30 minutes. So there'll be a timer that'll be displaying on our screens. So please just follow the timer. Once the time is up, we will continue. So please, it's a 30 minutes break, if I'm right. It's a 30 minutes break, and so yes, so your time starts now. I'll put a timer when we're about to start. So thank you very much, and that'll be it for now. Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. So let's just give another. Let's just give another. Do I say 5 minutes? So everybody gets seated. I might start before 5 minutes actually, because so that's why there was a timer to indicate. But I'll just give you that benefit of doubt and start at when it's 25 minutes. So, yep. Yep. So we're back. Okay, welcome back from the break. I'm sure everyone has stretched out a little bit. Those that want to eat have eaten. Those that went to pray have prayed. Those that have recapped on what we have spoken about, I'm sure they've also done that. So welcome back. And let's continue from where we stopped. So today we promise to actually keep to time. So might be fast, but let's try to catch up. That will be able to cover a whole lot and still keep to time. So let's start. I'm sure everyone should be seated. I gave an extra 5 minutes. So I think everybody should be ready for us to continue. So yes, now over to the hacking tool sets. Over to the hacking tool sets. So a hacking tool is actually a program designed to assist with hacking, or we can call it a piece of software which can be used for hacking purposes. So that is the definition of a hacking tool or hacking tool set. So it was actually designed to assist. Not to your knowledge of how to manipulate those tool sets, it's also going to be another advantage. And examples of some of those tools include Nmap. So most of these tools I'll be mentioning, okay, yeah, I'll tell you which ones are paid and which ones are for free. So in IT sector or cybersecurity sector, generally we don't call free tools. We actually call them open source tools, which means the source code is open for people to always come and suggest and edit. So we call it open source, and the paid ones are called closed source. So tools like Windows operating system is a closed source. Mac operating system is a closed source, but you see Kali Linux operating system is an open source. So get those terminologies, open source, closed source. So most of the tools I'll be breaking down for us today will be open source tools, which are free tools for anybody to be able to download. They're free, they're online, and they're everywhere for us to use. So one of the examples of these hacking tools is Nmap. Nmap is an open source tool. It's free. It comes pre-installed on Kali Linux. We will be installing Kali Linux in our session tomorrow, and we'll be using some of these tools. Nmap. Nmap is one of the tools, but for the Windows version, we have ZenMap, ZenMap, ZenMap. So that's the Windows version. It's also free on the Windows, but it's not command line interface, like it's a graphic interface version, GUI. So as compared to the one on the Mac, on the Windows, on the Kali operating system. The next tool is Nexus. We have one tool called Nexus. Nexus is paid, but it's one of the best and most professional open source tools you will find in the market. We have John the Ripper for password exploit. So what Nmap? Okay, I'll explain what all those ones do. Nmap actually is for scanning of network mapper, just as the name implies. It's for scanning networks and map the network. So you have an idea of what's running on that network. We have Nexus. Nexus is an open source tool for vulnerability scanning. John the Ripper is for breaking password. We have Metasploit is for actually creating exploits. Metasploit, so it's for creating exploits. It has a whole repository of attacks, prepared attacks. So you just go and your manipulation of the tool. You can actually, from Metasploit, you can create a malicious PDF file or even a malicious Microsoft Word document using Metasploit. We have AeroDump. AeroDump is one of the tools we use to dump packets from a Wi-Fi capture. So the AeroDump captures your Wi-Fi, whatever, and then it dumps the dumps the packets and analyzes that packet, and sometimes it's able to extract the password if your password is not so complicated on your Wi-Fi. Then bribes have also been described as one of the most potent hacking tools, due to the potential of exploitation in social engineering. So sometimes we also classify bribing as one of our hacking tools. You can bribe somebody to get one thing or the other, and so it's a tool also, especially in somewhere. Okay, let me not mention. So let's go down into the tool sets. So hackers have a lot of tools in their belts. So we have lots of tools that we use, and it's that a lot of average users have never heard of. So these tools aren't incredibly special or secretive, but most people simply don't understand what they are or how to use them. So the honest truth is that there are boatloads of different tools out there that can be used to break into a system or be used to identify vulnerabilities, depending on your intention. For the white hat is to activate vulnerability, and for a black hat is to actually break into a system. So, but guess what? Surprisingly, many of them are completely free. That's the truth. I've said that before, free. And part of the reason why many of these tools are free is the fact that they are written in Linux, and majority of Linux softwares are free of charge because they are protected under the GNU license. Call it GNU license, but it's G for God, N for new, and then U for umbrella. So yeah, GNU license is protected under the GNU license. So most of the tools you find in Linux, and that is why we'll be taking you through the installation of Kali Linux tomorrow, because that's one of the go-to operating systems. We hardly use Windows for hacking. That's the truth. We mostly use Kali Linux. We have different flavors of Linux. Most of them are free. Parrot OS, Kali Linux, Ubuntu, Arch Linux, and CSI Linux. That is mostly for cybersecurity. I mean, that's mostly for social media intelligence. That's the CSI. And Parrot OS, Arch Linux OS. I have a load of some of those OSs. I could have shown you some of them, but I don't know whether that would take some of our time. So let's just go straight. Don't worry. So the two sets we'll be talking about today will be vulnerability scanners, port scanners, and packet sniffers, and password crackers. So this is certainly not a comprehensive list of the tools a hacker has in their belt, but these are certainly some of the most important tools that you will need to be aware of. This is more of an awareness session. So these are some of the tools you'll be aware of. There are lots of tools. You can never finish learning them. In fact, thousands of tools. Don't worry, tomorrow you will see what comes pre-installed in Kali Linux. Pre-installed. Thousands, hundreds of tools for different purposes. But you know, you will take a closer look at them later on your own. But let's just break down these very important ones for you. So those that are interested in going the black hat way and those that are interested in going the white hat way can also pick and learn from them. So now let's start with vulnerability scanners. So vulnerability scanners were initially designed to help white hat hackers like me to find potential security holes in their computing systems, and then to plug up the security holes before a black hat hacker could find a way to penetrate them. So most of these vulnerability scanners are what we call them vulnerability analysis tools too. Sometimes, I told you yesterday that what we white hat hackers do most times is called vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. So these are the tools we use for vulnerability scanning. They are called vulnerability scanners, and they can be both used for good and for evil. Black hats can easily leverage a vulnerability scanner to find a weakness in a network, server, or host to facilitate an attack. So of course, even before the black guys do their attacks, sometimes they use some of these vulnerability scanning tools to actually scan, find the weakness, and then exploit. And the truth is that these scanners are very easy to use also, though some of them require some fine-tuning or tweaking, depending on the scanning you want to perform, and can be a little complex also. All you need to do is to point the scanner to the target, click on the button, and there you go. Your scan begins. So it's more like a pre-organized application for you. So instead of you typing furiously, trying to get, let me see which vulnerability is here, and be using different attacks that will not work or that will bounce back. These vulnerability scanners will scan that system for you, know what is wrong with that system, report it to you, and then you as the hacker can now go ahead to exploit the vulnerability that these vulnerability scanners have pointed out to you. So a black hat hacker will need them also, A black hat hacker will then need some other type of tools or software and then take advantage of whatever has been found. So, for instance, you use a vulnerability scanner, you scan YZZ, you've seen that, oh, this guy is vulnerable to this. The next thing, you go for another tool that can exploit maybe a particular tool based on the exploit vulnerability you found, and then use it against or use it to attack uh, that individual. So vulnerability scanners are really, really only used to identify weakness, just plain and simple. They just identify the weakness, plain and simple, and they go ahead to do what you want to do. It just tells you this website is vulnerable to cross-cry scripting. This website is vulnerable to SQL injections, and sometimes you even suggest the kind of exploit you can use depending on the vulnerability tool you're using. It can even suggest the exploit, and it will also suggest the solution also. So if it's a white hat using it, it will tell you the vulnerability and tell you the solution that you can apply to safeguard that vulnerability. So even some of you that are learning this course for your own positive use can scan your network, maybe your company network, see which vulnerabilities are there, and then tell the IT guy to, oh, see what I found on our network using this tool. And this is the solution the tool has told us to implement. So that's it. That's how it works, actually. So good. So there are 5 major types of vulnerability scanners. We have the host-based scanner, network-based scanner, application scanner, and wireless scanner, and then the database scanner. So based on your name, I'm sure you know where all these ones stands. Network-based are the ones that scan networks and they are hosted on the network sometimes. You have the host-based, which you install on what you want to scan. So there's a particular Linux scanning tool that checks for how hardened your Linux operating system is. There's a tool called Linux, Lynix. So whenever we want to use that tool, especially, we have to install it on that base. So that's a host-based scanner. Install it on that base and then scan that system. So more like even our antiviruses can be referred to sometimes as a host-based scanner because it's on the base, it's on the host, and it does the scanning from that host. We have application scanners, which are just used to scan applications, know which vulnerabilities are on that application. Some are specific to some specific applications. We have what we call WP scanner, which is used only for WordPress. So that's it's application specific. SQL mapper is the only application that have been used built using SQL. And that's how it goes. Wireless scanners are used to scan wireless networks for vulnerabilities and the possible exploitation of those vulnerabilities. Database scanners are used to scan database, just like the SQL mapper I explained to you just now. So that that's an example of a database scanner. We have several other ones that so that's it. So what are the pros of a vulnerability scanner? Like, what is the advantage of using a vulnerability scanner? One of the major things is that they make your systems more secure by identifying the weaknesses that an administrator or security expert can then address and take care of. I said that you can use it to scan the network and then tell your system and network administrator in your office, or maybe even maybe they are lodged in a hotel, you can scan the entire network of the hotel. You see all the people connected, see the kind of servers they use, and then if you are using a vulnerability scanner to tell them that, okay, this particular server is vulnerability to XYZ. So you can just write a small letter and present to the IT guy not to collect money. I don't know, but they might not pay since they didn't engage you from the beginning. So if you want to do it pro bono, do it pro bono, or use it to search your own home network. Even scanning, sometimes I've been asked a question: is it legal for me to scan somebody's network without the person's consent? Since I'm just scanning, well, I don't know. The truth is that it depends on the person. If the person chooses to take it up against you, man, I don't know where you guys might end. So, but it's debatable. Sometimes it's legal, sometimes it's not. So it's in the middle. And yeah. So the next one is next advantage is that it mitigates the risk of a hacker taking advantage of that system, and that's because you have done the work of a white hat hacker. You've seen it, and you have told people that, oh, this is existing, or fix it up. So before an attacker uses some similar tools and notice that, oh, this, yesterday there's a tool called Shodan. There's a vulnerability tool called Shodan. If you just go type it, it's spelled SHO DAN. SHODAN. Shodan scans actually scan an entire geographic location for vulnerabilities existing on different networks in an entire geographic location, not just in an office. And so that is one of the things. So even an attacker can do that. He doesn't even know your company before. So I've said it. Sometimes you feel like, who am I? They don't know me now. But an attacker can use a tool like Shodan. He scan and he sees the vulnerability and choose to exploit it. So that's one of the advantages, is that it helps us to fix security risk before attackers get there, and they are very fun to use. That's the truth. They are very fun to use. As simple as vulnerability scanners can look, I've used the vulnerability scanner, very simple vulnerability scanner, and one of the things that a vulnerability scanner has is that there's what we call spidering. That's what Google does actually. Is Google spiders. That's the technical term for it. It spiders our websites and picks up on things that are existing in the website. So when you now do a search, it has it saved in its database. So the same thing these vulnerability scanners do, is that they spider your network or the website you are trying to scan. And when they do that, it's what the spidering does is that it touches everything on that application. And we were doing one scan one day, and as we were spidering, the website shut down. We're wondering, it's just this scanner we have used. What? Like, why has this thing shut down? But the truth is that when somebody was programming the website, he set a dead link. What do I mean by, or maybe will I call it a dead link, or a trigger, like a switch, that once he accesses that URL, the website should shut down. The attacker did that so that when he gets sacked, the programmer did that just so that in case he gets sacked, he will just, and then they take out all his privileges, he will just access that link and their website will shut down. And just a simple scanner like this was what discovered that vulnerability. It was scanning, and like I said, it spiders, that means it touches all the links on that website and just touch that link that the guy had there. And that was how the website shut down. That was how we were able to discover that vulnerability. So we were able to read through the code, saw what he did, and we had to call him, call the company to order and explain to them that, oh, this is what somebody had said on your website and all that. Well, there was also a time we've done a web vulnerability scan and we found passwords. Yes, we found passwords hiding. The person actually hid it in a folder. So it's a password to access, and it's a fintech company here in Nigeria. So somebody actually put those passwords in that folder so that he doesn't have to, he has those passwords readily available. But funny enough, these spiders picked it up, and when I saw those folders, actually, if it's just curiosity, that's the truth. I was just curious that this folder, because it will show you the time it was accessed last, and all that. And, I'm like, somebody accessed this folder very recently, and that was what triggered my attention. And I opened the folder and I see passwords to their API, passwords linking their money from here to the other bank, linking from transactions together, token numbers, token codes, token a whole lot was found in that folder, which is not right. So some of those things are what vulnerability scanners pick up on. So what are the disadvantages of a vulnerability scanner? Sometimes they are not perfect, as they have potential to miss the latest vulnerabilities, and that's because they also upload a database of vulnerabilities. So they scan based on publicly known vulnerabilities. So that's why sometimes it's good for the hacker to also do his job manually. So I do that. I do automated scan using this, and I use manual. So the automated scan, when I'm done, like the password scenario I just gave, it was an automated. It was after I got results from the manual scan and I saw some folders being reviewed. Then I now did a manual attempt to check those folders, and that was when I found what I found. And so most times attackers, what we do, I mean, yeah, pen testers, what we do is that we do both automated and manual, so that we don't miss out on a whole lot of vulnerabilities. Some testers are in a hurry. They just go through whatever the scan pushes out and they bring it down. Sometimes it has some false positives. So they have to rely on updating your database constantly so that so that you get the latest updates on antivirus. I mean updates on trending vulnerabilities and all that, publicly known vulnerabilities. So hackers can take advantage of them to find ways to break into a system. That's also a default, because it's not nice if it's hackers that use it. It was actually created for security testers so that it makes the job easy. But of course, hackers will definitely make use of it too because it's free. That is the disadvantage. It's open for hackers or people that might not even have too much knowledge to use. So what it is, the next one we're going into, the next two sets is a port scanner. A port scanner, a port scanner is basically a software utility that can be used to determine which port a host is accepting connections on. So for example, if I wanted to see if I could pull up a web page from any host on my network, for instance, web pages that they run on 80 port 80. All I'll just do is to scan my subnet. Maybe I'm in a I always like using hotel as example because I feel that's one of the largest pieces that is free. Or maybe in an airport where I see one internet network I'm connected to, and then I connect to the network and I decide to scan. Okay, let me see if these guys have posted one web page on this same network that I'm on. The best way to do is to just scan for ports that are port 80. Once I see that the port 80 is open, then I'll know that okay, there is a web page that is hosted here. And I can now probe further and know what to do next. So this information is usually obtained from a port scanner, and it could help us as attackers to read between the lines. Like I said, if I see port 80, if I see port 443, I know that SSL is running here, or I see another port that is well-known port. It just gives us that idea that okay, this is what is running here. They have a database server on this network, they just from the port numbers. So that's why port scans are very, very important. So if a port scanner showed you that there's a port 9100 open, 9100 is that's a port for printers. So of course, I could just reasonably assume that the host has a printer or a print server. So, and you know, I know, printers are boring. Yeah, quite all right. Printers are quite boring for us as attackers, but we have ways of using it actually sometimes. I've used a printer to actually hack into an entire company before. Sorry. I've used that to hack into an entire company before. So printers will be quite boring to us as attackers, but it is also amusing to think that I can just choose to print something in my neighbor's printer. Maybe I'm attached to my neighbor's network, or even in an airport, and I just print out and multiple documents from just for fun, and waste their ink or do something just for fun. So that's how it is, yeah. But just think of the concepts, about the concepts. That's why I gave you that example. But just think of how far an attacker can go having that concept. So I know that okay, these guys have a database on the same network, and I know what to do to probe further. So it's like a help. I can now probe further and get what I need from that network. So yeah, that's it. Enough of the black hat thinking. Now let's take a moment to consider things from let's take a moment to consider things from the perspective of a white hat. So an ethical hacker could actually use the ports to verify what is running on the networks, and know which ports should be closed and which ports should be open. So it's actually very useful. It's a very useful verification tool used to prevent vulnerabilities also. The next two sets I will want to talk about, or that we'll talk about right now, is the packet sniffer. So basically, packet sniffers are they are invaluable tools that are able to capture and display all of the information that is flowing over a cable or transmission medium, such as a wireless interface. By using a packet sniffer, you'll be able to see in great detail all of the conversations that computers are having with each other. Yeah, that's the truth. You can actually use a packet sniffer. It's like a dog, a sniffing dog at an airport. He can use his nose to sniff, even if you put cocaine or you put any hard drug or whatever in your bag, the dog will be able to sniff it and know even without opening the bag. So that's the same thing a packet sniffer does. It's a sniffer, so it can sniff on the details in your network. I know what you're sending from computer A to computer C or Z. You can see connection attempts, you can see file transfer, you can even see Google searches that people are making. You can do that with the use of a packet sniffer. But packet sniffers are especially dangerous when the data is being sent in plain text. That's why we always advise encrypt your data whenever you're transferring on an open network, especially. So, which is another way of saying that the data isn't, when they say the data is in plain text, it just means it has not been encrypted before sending to the host. So, for example, if you're sending your username and password and they are not encrypted before being sent to the server, the server, a hacker can actually sniff on it, can leverage on that packet and sniff to capture your username and your password, and then he knows what he can do with it later. Use it to log into whatever account that those credentials belong to. But some packet sniffers, such as Wireshark, are very difficult for newbies to read because they simply don't understand how various protocols operate. That's why I explained protocols to you initially. So because we have one of the popular packet sniffers is Wireshark, Wire and Shark. The name Wire, WIRE, Shark, SHARK. You can Google that also. Wireshark is also free. It's free open source tool. You can download it, learn how to use it. It's very simple to use, trust me. And for those of you that have a little bit of knowledge of networking, you will see what I mean when I say it's very simple. You can be able to even see the nitty-gritties of a traffic. Yes, we can use Wireshark to even copy all the Google search people have been doing, even the images that people are downloading across the network. You can be able to use the Wireshark to streamline and say, okay, I want to just see all the images passing through this network. I want to see all the ports 9,100 passing through this network, all the printers, anything anybody is sending to the printer, I want to see it. Anything anybody is sending to the web server, I want to see. You can use the packet sniffer to actually sniff out any type of data that is flowing through the network. Just all you do is go there and filter whatever you want to filter. If you want to filter it based on URL, you want to filter it based on the port number, if you want to filter based on protocol, you can filter based on the host. The options are limitless, the filter options. So I advise just play around with Wireshark, and I'm sure some of you wonder how our service providers know what we're browsing. That's because they have things like this. So if you are visiting a specific website, how was Nigeria able to block Twitter? How did they know that it's Twitter that you want to access from your phone? That's because they have what we call packet sniffers that sniffs whatever packet you're sending. The only way to avoid being sniffed from a packet is when your connection is an end-to-end encryption connection, just like what we have on WhatsApp. So because of the end-to-end encryption, it actually the data encrypts from source and decrypts at destination. And so that's why even if there's a man in the middle, he won't be able to attack you because we have an end-to-end encryption. That's also why WhatsApp implemented that kind of security measure on their platform. So the next tool set is password cracking utilities. So hackers frequently use tools called password crackers to gain unauthorized access to computers, systems. Cracking is basically the term used to describe the process of obtaining the password that is hidden. Cracking is basically a term used to describe the process of obtaining a password that is hidden or stored in a protected format. So when we say protected format here is that most times passwords are stored in hashes. I think we talked about those hashes yesterday where we talked about the MD5, SHA-1, SHA-5, 1, 2, and all the rest. So yeah. So for example, there are wireless password cracking tools that allow an attacker to gain the password of the Wi-Fi network, even without needing to know anything. Once I just see your network around, I just use one. The arrow dump I explained initially also. I just use the arrow dump to capture all your packets, capture the packets, and then try to filter out which of the packets, dump all the packets and try to filter out the hashes that could contain password. Then when I get that hash again, I move that hash again to another password cracking software, maybe John the Ripper or LOP crack, and then use it to break that hash. The next thing I'll get your password in plain text and free network for me be that. So that's how it works. So now there are many other types of password attack and methods used by several utilities. Some of you have heard of brute force password attack before. And some of you have heard of brute force password attack before. Some of you have heard of dictionary-based attack also. So the brute force is the one that you actually brute force, like just mean brute, you force it. I'll just be guessing random things and be forcing it to break. And it's where we try to make sure that the computer will guess every conceivable password. To guess every conceivable password. We'll try one of those tools tomorrow also, and then or maybe on Saturday. So we'll try to hack one or two wireless networks around. So if you are nearby, we are taking this thing, turn off your Wi-Fi tomorrow. I'm just joking. So in addition, there are also dictionary-based attacks, and these are very useful for breaking weak passwords. Weak passwords. That's also why we have this particular picture that we're displaying to you. I will explain this thing now in a second. So it's used for breaking weak passwords. Just mark that keyword, weak passwords. So this type of attacks, it comes with a more realistic approach than the brute forcing of trying random things that might not even exist. So sometimes brute force works depending on the application you're trying to use it for, and sometimes the go-to is the dictionary attack. Dictionary attack is always what we go to as hackers, most times. So because we typically use a dictionary, so most times what attackers do is that most first of all we try a dictionary attack, then go with the brute force attack because there is a higher chance of actually cracking that password using a dictionary-based attack. So brute force attacks have this colossal downfall. They can be extremely slow, due to the millions and millions of combinations. It's just be combining different words, due to that millions of combinations. Sometimes it chops a whole lot of memory. So most hackers use what we call gaming systems. I didn't want to mention that earlier today because I don't want you guys to feel to be a hacker, I have to buy one expensive laptop. It's true, depending on what you want to use it for, actually. So if you're using it for something like breaking of passwords, you need a gaming system or a system that has a graphic processor. Apart from the CPU, most of us know what CPUs are. You need a GPU, graphic processing unit. So when you're trying to crack this kind of passwords, you have to combine the power of your GPU and the power of your CPU together so that you get a faster result or faster response time, because you have to do millions of combinations, millions of trying, and all the rest. So now let me break it down for you here. This is also what comes when it comes to GPU combination and CPU. You see, if you have a password, so let's look at this table on the side. Let me turn on my lights, my pen again, so we can know what I'm talking about. Here we have the password length. Here we have the numerical passwords. We have a password that has a combination of upper and lowercase. We have numerical, which has from 0 to 9 and A to Z, upper and lowercase. Then we have the ones that have lowercase, uppercase, and special characters also mixed together. So let's see what it is. For password, this has the password length. They have from page 1 to, number 1 to 20. So for us to crack a password that is just one length, you do that, we can do it instantly. You can do it instantly. Any password that has between 1 to 5 characters, trust me. If I want to 6 characters, depending on the combination, you can crack it on all fronts. If you like, mix it with upper and lower case, as long as it's not more than 5. See, this is 20 seconds, this is 49 minutes. In fact, if you have up to, if it's just 8 characters, trust me, in 49 minutes, your password will be cracked. If you like, mix it with 0, 9, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, as long as it doesn't exceed 9, as long as it doesn't exceed 9 characters, trust me, instant breaking or 8 characters. Once you just impute it into the software to break it almost instantly. So that's why we always advise you to use combination, a very, very hard. I will also tell you, how to, what kind of passwords to use also. I'll explain that also just in a bit. Let me get done with this explanation. So you see that the harder the password, the harder or the longer the password, the longer it takes. And you see, this analysis is based on some very super computers, very, very super fast computers. Not all these are 32 gig, and no, these are super computers. And then, so maybe for something like my system that has a GPU, a gaming system that has a GPU and CPU, where we see maybe 20 seconds, it might take maybe 60 seconds, just little differences. But yeah, that's to show how instant and how quick it can be. You can see when we now have a combination of upper and lower case with 10 characters, it takes us 15 days. We have it with when you mix it with uppercase, lowercase, and special characters, we take 300, that's a 10, a password length of 10 mixed with upper and lowercase and all that. It will take 330 years before somebody can break it. I'm sure the person itself will be tired now. That's also why we also advise people to always change your passwords frequently, because somebody might have copied your password hash and be somewhere trying to break that hash. You can just dedicate maybe some of his system resources and be trying to break that hash. So we always advise people to change your passwords frequently so that even if somebody has captured your hash before, it will be difficult for the person to break it over time. So even if the person breaks it, then next thing, bam, you have changed it, the person starts process afresh. So once there's any indication of compromise on the password or any of your accounts, you just change your password. Just change your password to help you a lot. So the truth is, the longer the password, the better. So my rule of thumb is always use a sentence for your password. Don't use a word. Don't say because now password, I go use word. No, use a sentence. So you can use a sentence like, I love Ministry of Youth and Sports 2022 question mark, full stop, and a number. Just mix it up like that. Use a statement. I love my dad. I love my mom. I love mathematics. Or I'm a blessed child. Or I'm highly. Just use a word and use a sentence combined as a word. In fact, when you're even doing that, mix it up. Lowercase, uppercase. Some places that have a Z, that have O, you use 0. Some places that have, just mix it up like that. It makes it very difficult because when we are attacking, we use dictionary words. And so when we get a phrase, sometimes these days we've also advanced to using phrases because we've given people a lot of this advice. And so we too are aware that that's what people do. So we now mix up phrases in the dictionary to pick from here, to pick from there. So that's why you should also be creative in using those sentences for your password. Use a sentence that you can always remember also. Apart from your two-factor authentication that we explained yesterday, use sentences for your password. It should go a long way to mitigate a lot of attacks on your account. Brute force, whether be it brute force, be it brute force, be it dictionary attack. Using a sentence rather than a word helps a lot. And even that sentence, mix it up with special characters like question mark, exclamation, open brackets, close brackets, at percentage sign. Just mix it up, be creative with it. And let's pray that we don't get cracked or hacked one of these days. The next is social engineering attacks and the mitigation strategies for them. Social engineering attacks and the mitigation strategy for them. Let me turn off my pen. So, while you have Enoria's thoughts on uh, uh, why hackers want to steal your passwords, or you think, okay, like we explained previously, that they'll be trying to break it using, trust me, there is a simpler way now that hackers will use is social engineering. It's social engineering. Social engineering is the technique whereby, it's frequently used by sophisticated hackers actually to gain access into a network. I've been in an environment and I just went up and I was like, I was on your network before. I beg, I don't know what happened. I changed my laptop. Please reconnect me. And the guy there reconnected me. So that was a social engineering attack. I just engineered him and told him, come on, I don't deal with you now, maybe today now. So why not? And he didn't even do any further due diligence. And I got on their network, did what I needed to do, and I moved on. So that is the new way. So you need to have solid understanding of these techniques to be able to protect yourself also from the black hat endeavor. So one of the major techniques that we're going to start with now, so it's actually a way, social engineering is a way for hackers to manipulate targets into unknowingly forfeiting their information. So let's start by defining, wow, we have limited time to, I'll try to be very fast right now. So let's start by defining the term social engineering. Basically, it's a way for hackers to manipulate targets into unknowingly forfeiting their information. So it's a process of tricking people into divulging private information that could be useful in a cyber attack. So like I gave you that explanation of the password, it helped me a lot because from getting that password, I was able to get into their servers. I was able to do one or two things on their network. And, on regular day, it would have taken me months, even years to break into that password. But with a simple social engineering, we're able to do that. So most typically, this information is used. This information is this information is typically used to get things such as username, passwords, and the black hat hacker converts that to gain access into a computing network or the system. So once they have that point of entry to the network, then we proceed into reconnaissance, we scan, we see what is happening on the network, we do port scans, do a general network mapping using our nmap, and but over time we continue to forge our attack. Once you get into an environment, the options are endless. The options are limitless. You can acquire banking details, So to the point that some people that's what some people use to hack your Facebook. You're wondering that, and then my Facebook has been hacked. It has been taken over. Simple thing like the social engineering, you don't even know when you told. Sometimes these hackers don't do these things immediately. They will get your password details, and maybe it's in 2 weeks' time that they will exploit, so that you even remember. Sometimes that's true. Hackers they're not in a hurry. You don't rush. Trust me, it takes time. Sometimes we could be on the system for years, just monitoring what you're doing and what is happening before the attack strikes. And so that's how it works actually. So sometimes somebody might have socially engineered you or combined your birthday and one other name together, and they're into your or even your email address. They've been able to take over your email address before. All those short games that people like playing. I think Facebook has reduced it now because it's even affected their platform also. That was how people were able to hack into Facebook through some of those fun. There was these games we used to play that time on Facebook that if you say, show me how old I will be in 20 years' time, and you now tap it. Already, I'm sure when you are trying to launch that thing, it's not made by Facebook, it's made by a third party. So those third parties, you actually give us access to your Facebook this, your Facebook that, and then you click yes. Boom. And those APIs were open. Facebook tried to make it open so people and random people will be able to make those softwares, and the platform will be interesting. But I think it became an issue even for Facebook themselves. You see somebody will tell you, enter your name and will tell you your personality. So when you once you click that app, it immediately generates its request for some information that you don't even know. And you click yes, it give it access to your information. Sometimes even give it access to your contacts on your phone, contacts on your, and some of you even save your passwords and your credit card details on your phone. So it gives it access to your contact, gives it access to your email, just that app. I don't know what the fun is there in knowing how you will look in 20 years, which is not true. Or you say type your name, will tell you your personality. All those little things is some of those games that actually drag is for social engineering. So part of this is just due to psychology. So you always find people who are always quick to guard their personal information and question where their personal data goes to when they enter it online. But when talking about it in real life, people get a lot relaxed with all these things. So you might actually have an issue giving out your BVN to a stranger over the phone. But let's consider a short scenario. Let's say you're an accountant working in a medium-sized company. One day you get a call asking you, I mean, you get a call and then you say, there's a network issue, just like I explained to you. So sometimes, let me just quickly rush up this. So you can always trust, but always try to verify, please. Always try to verify whatever you're doing. So you should take physical security. So always verify what you're doing. Verify what you're doing. That's the truth. Just like a pizza man who comes to deliver pizza, and from there comes pulls out a gun and something like that. So always trust your instincts when it's time for all these things to avoid social media. So I won't waste too much time because of our time. This is an email that was sent on behalf of Microsoft. If you take a close look, let me turn on my pen. If you take a close look at this, you will notice that Microsoft is Microsoft. It's a double T instead of a double F. So they manipulate even most of our Yahoo boys in Nigeria do this a lot. They create a domain name and try to just switch up one or two of the sense this thing there, and you will know. You think it's a message from DSTV requesting for something, but no, that's not the case. See, this was that one from World Health Organization telling you that you have something to pick up regarding World Health Organization. Gave a very good article here. For coming down, it says you are receiving this email because you have a life count one thing with us. Sign up for more of this on Twitter. When you click this website, you realize that it's taking you to another website. So you carry you go where you don't know. So you always need to be very, very careful. So there's this short story of how somebody was called, that he's being called from MTN. Actually, this was sent to one of the groups where I'm a member. So that it was sent that he calling for that. Um, he was asked how long he has been using it. He told them, oh, close to about 15 years, blah blah blah. So say, have you ever received any bonus from MTN? He said no. He said, okay. The truth is that we want to. It's because you are not a member of one of our MTN users WhatsApp, people that have spent X number of years on WhatsApp, we have put them in, I mean, on MTN, we have put them in one WhatsApp group like that. And the guy said, no, he's not in that WhatsApp. We say, that's why now. Okay, so we'll send you a code now. When you receive that code, please tell us what it is. That is the code that will give you access into the WhatsApp we have created for you. And next thing, they sent him a code, and truly, a code was sent to him while they were on the call. And less than a few minutes later, next thing started seeing was debit alerts on his phone. So they manipulated, and at the end of the day, the team ended up at a tune of about 500,000 plus. 500,000 right now in Nigeria. He went to complain to his bank and there was nothing they could do because, of course, he divulged a very important information. So it's likely that those guys got some of his information, basic information about him previously, and then just used it to attack him later on, and then requested for an OTP and was able to give it to them. Maybe they were using it through a banking app, and the banking app requested for an OTP, which they just manipulated on his intelligence and told him that it's a code for him to enter WhatsApp. They will never tell you what they're going to use these things for. So that's the truth. They will never tell you. And so that was how he divulged that information. And over 500,000 got pulled out of his account. So we should be very careful Sometimes you get this kind of calls too from DSTV telling you that they want to upgrade your package on DSTV to a higher pay. So you need to set, please don't respond to all those things. Whenever you get those calls, use go online, search for the recommended customer care numbers of those people, call them and confirm if there's any promo of such going on, and know what next to do. So types of social engineering, I'm going to be very fast now. So please try to pick up. If you don't understand, you can rewind later and listen to it over and over again. So an email, types of social engineering attack, you can get an email from an untrusted party, get a false help, a false request for help. Sometimes attackers send messages that appear from a legitimate company requesting for a help. So baiting targets. So any baiting scheme is going to revolve around appearance that the attacker is offering something of value. Sometimes they'll tell you they are offering you something. So COVID, I'm sure almost everybody in Nigeria has used that thing that you have won 37,000 naira as COVID relief. Call Mr. John to confirm that payment, and all those things is rubbish. Please don't ever respond to it. Once you start responding to it, they might tell you something that will tickle your fantasy, and before you know, you are falling victim of all those things. So be very careful. You have to protect your time yourself. Take your time to think about the consequences of your action before time. Make sure you take time to verify the information, like I explained to you. If it's something calling from a reputable source like MTN, DSTV, and others, look for the right customer care number. Call them, confirm if it is what it is before you do. Never respond to an email that requests for information such as your username and password. If I always tell people, like, if you're sending a username and password, if you use a phone call to tell the person the username, send the password with an SMS, or if you're using the SMS, if you're using WhatsApp to send the password, use SMS to send the username. Never send it combined together in one message. You never know who is intercepting your information at any point. In fact, somebody could hack into your email and then see when you sent one of your banking credentials to one of your sister in somewhere. So if you are sending your banking username, fine, and your account details, fine, send it. When you are sending the password, use a different medium. Use a different medium. If you are doing one on phone call, do the other one on SMS, or if you are doing one through the email, do the other one on SMS or WhatsApp or something. Just use different mediums when you're sending such things. You can also use Truecaller to reverse do it. There are several times Truecaller has identified spammers on my phone and scammers. So once you just enter the phone number on your phone, to pop up and tell you that, oh, this has been flagged XYZ number of times as a scammer. So you already know what you're up to. That's it. Web exploits. Okay, web exploits. Let me just quickly go into this and brush over it also. Web exploits is one of the exploits. So up to this point, we're talking about hacking of all this and all that. But web-based vulnerability, on the other hand, is a completely different animal on its own. So there's no way around it. The internet is extremely dangerous place, especially in this modern society. Even if you take the greatest care to strengthen your computer devices by implementing newest security measures, it is still very, very much likely to, it is still very likely that your web browser or web server can become compromised by hackers anywhere around the world. So that's why it's called a web-based attack, web-based exploit. So attacks targeting web-based vulnerability happen every single day, and there's no telling who could initiate the attack against the website. Since it's not limited to a joke. Somebody in Russia can be hacking a Nigerian website. Of course, most of the hacks from comes from foreign countries, and it's pretty easy to use VPNs these days. And so, of course, so there are two types of web-based attacks that we're talking about. There are many, but we'll focus on two of greatest concern, which is SQL injection and cross-site scripting. So these attacks are such a huge problem because they are carried out frequently on the internet. And so yeah, that is it. They are carried out frequently. So for example, sometime last year, there was an expert on a WordPress plugin called WP Supercache. So it's a WordPress plugin. For those of you that develop websites, I would advise you to go update that plugin on that website. If you have used it anytime recently, please update it, because the flaw actually involved us injecting an SQL code, which we'll still talk about shortly, how SQL code into the website database, and it caused a whole lot of anomaly that broke down the whole system of that particular web-based infrastructure that we're talking about. So, and this exploit tool was actually one of the first reports by a well-known extremist group, some of the very well-known extremist group that operates around the world, the ISIS and co. So they actually use this vulnerability to exploit some of their victims' websites or some of the websites that they didn't seem deem fit as one of the based on some of the um, policies that they fly. So that's it. However, there's always a white hat approach also to this, and understanding the white hat approach will help you a lot to secure your website. So let's just go quickly into what SQL injection is. So first, we'll begin with a brief description of SQL software, which means SQL. It means structured query language. S for structure, Q for query, and L for language. And it is it's a high level language that is used to communicate with databases, and it helps application developers and websites install, update, and delete information in databases. So we have less than 5 minutes left, so I'll just quickly rush over everything right now, and so that we can close on time today. We want to make sure we keep to time today. So yeah. So one thing about this is that any quick developer will always sanitize his websites to make sure that data that is entered is what he needs. So for instance, if there's a username, let me tell you how to know from websites that have gone to SQL injection, even from a layman's perspective. If they ask you for username or maybe phone number, and you can see that if they ask you for phone number, and you can see that you can actually type in alphabets or type in some plus and minus, just like you can see here, star, select star from, select this. Once you can type in any of these things, just know that that website is vulnerable to an SQL injection, and you can now play around trying to know which information you can get. So one thing that developers forget to do is to sanitize. So if they had sanitized it, it will drop every query that does not resemble what they want of the website. So for instance, like the example I gave, instead of entering phone number, they're entering it to an alphabet, that kind of thing. And it allows you, phone number is 0 to 9, and then you're able to enter ABC to Z or something. Then just know that that website is vulnerable. You're able to enter some special characters like plus, minus, equals to another. Then just know that that website is vulnerable to SQL injection. Next one is cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting, also known as it's a well-known web vulnerability that allows attackers to compromise the information that users have with a vulnerable application. So it allows an attacker to actually circumvent the same origin policy of that website, which is designed to segregate different websites from each other. But now, this cross-site scripting vulnerability normally allows an attacker to masquerade as the victim user. You get it allows an attacker to masquerade as the victim user, and if the victim has the privileged access into the application, that's all. He gains full control over the entire website. Very easy, also very similar to the cross-site scripting. In this case, in the URL, in this case, you enter the attack on the URL. You just add a few codes. You can try it if you want to know a website that is vulnerable to that. You add some scripts. You add there's this you add the script tag to the beginning and the script tag to the end, and then see what the website pulls out to you. You might try that later also. So you just manipulate. There's actually a JavaScript. It returns the JavaScript to the user, and then from there you can manipulate what you want to manipulate on the browser. So just do a little bit. So what are the types of cross-site scripting attacks? You have the reflected attack, which is one of the simplest ways that this can be carried out. We have the cross-site type, and then we have the DOM-based attack. So how to prevent this, we'll explain all that shortly. So let me just round up with the introduction to the dark web. Okay. Let me just round up with the introduction to the dark web, where I know a lot of people might want this. So that's why I've skipped all the SQL and all that. At least this can help people in general. It can help everybody in general. So the software web is actually the smallest part of the internet that we have. It is easily accessible to the general public and does not require any special configuration. So you can access it with your regular browser or search engine. And this is where sites like Facebook and all that. Then whereas the deep web is a portion of the website. It's a portion of, so there are basically three parts of the website: surface web, deep web, and the dark web. So, but the deep web is actually a portion of the internet that is not searchable by Google or all our regular search engines. So most content here is usually password protected. Also, you must log in or have a specific IP address or URL to access the deep web content. So some sites on the deep web don't even have the standard top level domains such as the .org, .com, .net, and the rest of it. So as a result of this, you can't find them on our popular search engine. Lastly, the dark web is the subnet of deep web, inaccessible generally to the public. So it relies on a peer-to-peer connection. And the dark web is also well known for communicating about a whole lot of communicating or selling illegal things such as weapons, drugs, or stolen data, and malware. You can even buy malware. You can buy exploits from other hackers. So that is that. How can you access the dark web? It's the next one. So think of Tor. Okay, so just go around, check on your Tor browser. We'll continue from here tomorrow. Let's keep to time. And so go around. Tomorrow we'll continue from dark web briefly, and then before we go into the practical part of it. So let me just end here. Go around, search around for Tor browser. You can download it so that tomorrow when we're talking about it, it should be easy for you. Another thing you can download also before we come tomorrow so that you'll be quick to catch up. Probably some of you have some free data at night or something. You can try to download VirtualBox. Just do a Google search on how to get VirtualBox. Then you can also do a Google search on how to download Kali Linux. I will explain better tomorrow. So just get those two softwares ready tomorrow. It will help you to really follow up with the practicals. You can also download your Tor browser. I will explain how you can. Please don't use it yet because it could be very risky if you don't know how to use it properly. It could be very risky. You could get caught up with a whole lot of laws and policies around it. So please, when you're doing that, do it carefully. Wait tomorrow so that we explain how to use it in a proper and a secure manner. So thank you very much. And we'll continue tomorrow. From there, don't forget the softwares we have requested you to get. Get the, I'll repeat myself, VirtualBox, Tor browser, and Kali Linux. When you're downloading Kali Linux, choose the bare metal version. Choose either the 64 bits, depending on your operating system. Most people use 64 bits. So VirtualBox, Kali Linux, 64 bits, and the Tor browser. Tomorrow, we'll continue. Thank you very much for your attendance. I'll hand over to my colleague Bumi now to just round up and give you some brief recap. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for being a part of today's training session. I'm sure we had an exceptional time learning all that we learned today. We have to keep to time. So of course, the facilitator will continue from where he stopped today. The class continues tomorrow by 12 p.m. I did say earlier that we have decided to structure the session in a manner that allows for our Muslim brothers to pray. But tomorrow will be quite different, both in Jumat. So the class will start by 12 p.m. and run all the way to 1 p.m. By 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., we would have a break so that people could go pray, and then you could use that time to, reflect on all that you have learned. And then at exactly 2 p.m. on the dot, down to 3 p.m., we would continue the class. And that would be all for tomorrow. I want to quickly encourage as many of you who are still online to please subscribe to our Twitter, Facebook, and of course our YouTube pages. You will see the Academy Halogen page. Just Google Academy Halogen and subscribe. Currently, you're on that site, so you can just click on subscribe. Look for the Halogen group on YouTube as well. What would this do for you? To give you the opportunity to get regular updates, content from the business. And I assure you there's a whole lot of rich content and then several other free things that we may be offering either in partnership or even as an organization. So feel free to please check that out. You can go to Twitter at HalogenNG. You would see our Twitter page, Instagram at Halogen Group, LinkedIn Halogen Group as well. So please just search through. And then as many of you that can still hear me, please like, share, subscribe, right? Thank you for today. See you tomorrow by 12 p.m. I assure you that all of your comments, your questions on the chat box and all our other social media handles has been captured. And on Saturday, when we have the tutorial session, we would deal with all of these questions, as many as possible within the time that we have. Do enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. See you tomorrow by 12 p.m.